Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of That Which Binds Us. I'm here with my brother, Jack.
Hello.
We are recording our either second or third episode. We'll see how it
Depends
goes.
on how bad the second one was.
But yeah, welcome to That Which Binds Us. This is a podcast where we share stories, experiences, and big ideas that ultimately bind us all together, not just Jack and I, but the people around us. So welcome in, and thanks for listening.
Yeah, glad to have you.
Today's episode is something that has been on my mind a lot in the last month or two. And it's something that I wonder how other people relate to this topic and if it's similar to me.
Yeah.
So the topic is the idea or the experience of expressing yourself and creativity as a whole. I've just been thinking about it a lot more in the last month. My therapist really brought it up and kind of challenged me in that to find some new creative outlet that was like a safe, judgment-free zone to express yourself. And I've never really directly pushed myself in that area because I thought I was just bad at it.
Yeah.
But now I'm pushing myself at it, and it feels like I've discovered this whole world of things that are really hard.
Yeah, things that you've never tried before, or at least never really tried before.
Yeah, or was encouraged to do, or I just wrote it off as I was bad at it.
Yeah.
So I'm trying that.
What does that historically look like for you? Like growing up when you're, 12 years old, kids are making art or like drawing on what does expression look like to you when you're 12? Like what's your relationship with that?
Yeah. The main thing that I immediately draw back to is my friends' imagination whenever we would play. Whenever we would just play in the backyard and imagine settings. I had a friend growing up and we would always recreate just scenes from different Star Wars episodes.
Yeah. I think I would even do that with you sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, I loved that. Yeah. And I was always Obi-Wan. He was Anakin, and it was dope.
That's awesome. Best place to be.
It's dope.
That's amazing.
His favorite color was... His was green, mine was blue. Perfect.
That makes sense. Why not? Yeah. You actually couldn't have been Anakin because your favorite color was...
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I was always envious of his ability to just create the setting and really lean into being Anakin. Uh-huh. And Anakin is a really emotionally distraught character.
And was he playing it real? Was he playing all the emotion?
In it, yeah. And I internally was a little jealous, but also my exterior was a little bit this is
you're kind of dumb for that.
Which I think was a product of my environment and what my cooler friends would have said.
Yeah. Or what you think cool people say.
Yeah. So that friend, I remember being envious of his ability to just express himself in this thing that he enjoyed. That also showed itself in Legos. He loved Legos and would always just create really cool ships and buildings purely from his own imagination. And it was always just crazy to me because I would need a replica or a step-by-step thing to build the things he's doing. And he's just doing it from his mind. So that's what it looked like early on.
Do you give that some sort of causation, or do you think that obviously you and I can have this debate of nature versus nurture? Were you built that way? Are you more of an analytic type and less of an emotional, someone who really expresses themselves like that? Or do you think you were expressive, you just didn't necessarily have the tools to express yourself? What do you think that was for you?
I think it was kind of a product of my environment in a lot of ways. I'm trying to think of good examples. Because I think just in that example, I was jealous of his ability to creatively express himself.
You wanted to. That was something you wanted.
I wanted to know that my friend was like me. I was being a really good friend to him in that scenario because I wasn't being judgmental. I mean, there was a part of me, but...
Yeah. You weren't going to show him that you were judging him.
Yeah. And so if I knew my friend would be like that, if I had that amount of creative freedom, I think I would be creative and lean into those emotional sides of myself.
Is there a feeling of unsafety? When you go back to that moment and you're okay, if I express myself and really lean into this emotion and acting this silly little scene, does that make you feel unsafe, vulnerable in a way?
Totally. Because you don't know what how the audience will react. And in this case, the audience was Count Dooku for both of us, because I was Obi-Wan and he was Anakin. But you just don't really know, like, how the audience is going to react. And a lot of times you're, like, projecting what you already think they are going to think.
Yeah. Which probably comes from someone in your life who does give you a worst case scenario. Like when you do express yourself or show yourself to be vulnerable, there's probably somebody, at least in my experience, there was somebody who like showed me a world where that wasn't safe. Like being vulnerable, being silly, whatever, wasn't a safe place.
Yeah.
So then I immediately copy pasted that response to everyone I knew and just assumed the worst case scenario. I still do this with my wife, where it's hard for me to like be silly with her or say something silly that I am not 100% sure that she's going to respond well to.
Right.
And if I don't know she's going to respond well, I usually opt out, because I assume the worst case scenario, that she's going to hate it. She's going to hate me. She's going to, I'll like going really deep. But I did that with my friends too, where I couldn't open up about certain things, or like now I can't hug men because I'm worried of the worst case scenario because it's a really vulnerable thing. But so you have this friend who's acting his heart out. You want to act your heart out, but you can't. Is there other like situations where that happens, where you're like, man, I wish I could just fucking draw like that, or I wish I could just get out some colors and go ham on this page?
Yeah.
Or do you, in what ways do you wish you would have expressed yourself?
I don't know. I don't even know if I like wish I would have. I guess I'm just now like tapping into it, and I know I wasn't equipped with the emotional stability to do that and deal with like the consequences and the fallback of expressing myself. So I guess I don't look at, I mean, there's a little bit of like, I wish I would have been more free to express myself, but now I'll just do it when I'm 22.
You discovered it.
That's
Why
fine.
Not?
Yeah.
So what are some things now that you look at that you're like, man, I want to try this? I mean, a podcast.
This podcast is 100% a result of that, and me like pushing myself to express myself and feel confident about myself, regardless of the audience's reaction or whatever that looks like.
Can I be Anakin if we're doing this, or am I Obi-Wan?
It's hard because you're my older brother.
Yeah, and in every game we played, I was for sure Obi-Wan.
Yeah,
but,
for sure.
I don't know. I like you as Obi-Wan. I think you should stick with Obi-Wan. Okay, cool.
All right.
So that's what this is. Just pretend that we're acting out Star Wars, and this is you expressing your creative self.
Yeah. So definitely this podcast is a result of me trying to creatively express myself in a judgment-free zone that is really vulnerable, but really good for me, I feel like, and it's been really good pushing myself in this. And so for you, I know we were just talking about this earlier before we started recording, but you've recently taken on a new endeavor.
Yeah.
That sounds like it's hitting this topic of self-expression on the nose.
I've recently started improv classes,
which is like so cool. Like all the media, like one of our favorite shows growing up was Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Yeah.
I didn't watch it that often, but whenever it was on, I would almost always laugh.
Yeah.
And then the other one that comes to mind is Impractical Jokers.
Yeah.
Like that's pretty improv-like.
Yeah, that's all it is they don't have a script and they just yeah.
So we've obviously loved consuming that media, but like participating in that media is something totally different. So it's really cool that you're doing that. I just am like so excited.
Well, and I didn't even realize how difficult participating in that media is. It's like you watch Whose Line and you're like, man, that looks fun. They look like they're having a blast. And then you get up on stage and they say, you're this, do this. And everything goes black. And my brain forgets how to talk. And there are no words in front of me. And I've only done 2 classes, by the way. So this is me also stepping out into a sort of like abyss that I'm not really sure what is out there. But my relationship with expressing myself has typically only been, there's only been space for things that I'm good at. So like sports or music. I've always generally had a good opinion of my own voice or my own musical abilities. And then I was like, I want to try something that like really scares me. And boy, did it scare me. My first class was actually this last week, or my first real like class where we were doing scene work, and I got on stage. and just in the middle of the scene, I was with the director. So she was trying to take it easy on me, I think, but she gave me an opening and just, she didn't say anything and just like, let there be silence. And
she's the improv like teacher or director of this all?
Okay. Exactly. And so she's doing the scene with me, and she's not giving me a whole lot. And it was on purpose, I think. It was trying to get me to dig in. But man, it felt like 5 minutes where I just couldn't speak. I had nothing to say. And I was thinking about it later, like every conversation is improv. Like this moment right now, you're about to say something and I'm not going to know what you're going to say, and I'm going to respond to it. And I don't have to worry or think about because I'm just like, I trust myself as a human with the capability of conversation and language to say, you say something, I can respond to that. I know how to do that. I've been doing it for 28 years. But when I got on stage and she said something and I had to say something back, it was like, I literally could not think of one English word to say. It was nothing. And there's 8 people watching, and they're also all improv people. And they're all watching, looking at me, and I just like, everything goes dark. I have no words. Like my heart is racing. I think I'm going to faint on stage. And you know what that is? It's just an anxiety attack. I just had anxiety. But it felt so intense. And then I got through it. I picked it up, and I did a pretty bad... Actually, she helped me now that I think about it. She's like, is there a pamphlet over there that you could that you could pick up? And I was like, oh, yeah, there is. Let me pick up this pamphlet, which of course isn't there. And I'm like, here's the pamphlet. And that helped me get to the scene, because then I had like something that helped me move on. The scene, the idea was a zoo. So I was like, oh, here's a pamphlet for the zoo. That's easy enough. So then I'm talking about the pamphlet, and we got through it, and it sucked. It was really bad. And then I sat down, and she just like knew. She knew so easy. She's seen a million of me. And she was like, you got a little panicked up there, didn't you? And I was like, yeah, I wanted to die. And then she goes, but you didn't die, and you got through it. And it was like, yeah. I like felt, like the TikTok, all over TikTok, there's like moments that altered my brain chemistry as a kid. And like, I can think of all those moments where it's like, oh, that changed my life forever. My relationship to this has never been the same since that one time that happened. And I heard her say, but you made it through. You didn't die. And it reattached one of the wires in my brain that was like, you're going to die if something bad happens. And then it was like, oh, actually, you're not. That's not that big of a deal. You're allowed to just like fuck up and then get through it. And you know what? Nobody's going to think about it forever. Like that moment only now exists in my head, and every single other person involved has forgotten about it. But for me, it was like the biggest, like I even sweat thinking about it now. And it was about a week ago or a few days ago. And since like the 3 days after, I have not stopped thinking about what I could have done differently. And obviously that's not the relationship you're supposed to have with improv and the relationship I want to have with improv. But I do just have such a natural tendency to judge myself and be self-conscious of myself that to see myself do poorly feels like an expression not worth expressing. It's like, why would I express myself that way when I'm bad at it? Yeah. So like, I have to figure the fuck out before I can do it. So it makes me want to quit, to be honest. It makes me never want to do it again. But I'm in a new phase of life now where I just don't want to reject those things anymore. I'm aware of myself enough to know that things that make me want to quit are probably things I should be doing more of. So now I'm like, I'm pretty excited to get back. I'm pretty excited to get back, do it again, and like embrace that moment and reconnect more of those like wires in my brain that are telling me that it's unsafe, and reconnect more and be like, yeah, I'm good. I'm safe. I'm comfortable. I'm stupid. I'm making a fool of myself, and it is a blast, and it is fine, and I'm going to live. And I think I can only imagine how much of a healthier person I'll be afterwards if I can manage anxiety like that in a way that I can tell myself, you're not going to die. You're going to make it through. Instead of, you're going to die. You have to stop. Everybody here has to cater to my anxiety right now. But she didn't cater to my anxiety on stage. She didn't say, okay, Jack needs a break. She was like, you're going to get the fuck through this, or else you're just going to stand here in silence for 10 minutes. And those are my 2 options, and I got the fuck through it.
Damn.
So yeah, that's the expression that I'm doing now that is interesting. It's hard. might be one of the harder things I've done in that capacity, and in terms of like pushing myself on purpose. You know, there are hard things that I've had to get through that weren't necessarily my like in my control, but this is totally in my control, and it's really pushing myself. But it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's so cool to hear about. One of the things you said earlier before we were recording was like, it's almost like that dream you have when you're on stage.
Yeah.
And it's just maximum stage fright.
Yeah.
But it's not that you forgot your lines. It's that you never had any lines to begin with. So you have to find them live in that moment.
Yeah.
And that just like picture of having those stage fright moments and the lines never existed in the first place.
Yeah.
Is so terrifying.
Yeah. Cause it's like I remember, cause I did theater. I thought I was going to be good at this, by the way. I did theater in high school, and I thought like, how hard could it be? Like I've been on stage. I know how to be on stage. I have a decent stage presence. I'm a bad actor. Like I know enough about myself to know that I'm not a very good actor, which isn't the point, and I'm fine with. But I was like, I think I'm going to be pretty good. And I remember times from high school where I would forget my line and just kind of like freeze. And that is a scary moment. Like it hits you, but your body knows, you practice enough, your body just kind of like gets into it and says it. But if you don't have the thing to say and you're just silence, it's like, does my body even know anymore? Like I haven't practiced this. I've got nothing. But I think the reality is your body does know, because we're having a conversation right now and my body knows how to respond. I'm not having to think about it. I just am capable of language.
Yeah.
So if I think about it in that setting, it's like I know the next line because I get to make the next line. But if I'm not like present or there with it or comfortable or like aware of myself, then yeah, it feels like I don't know what to say. I have nothing to say next. Which I'm excited to really like nail down and comb through and get to a point where it's like, yeah, it's just like talking. It's just like having a conversation. And I think it'll be really, really good for me. But yeah, it does feel that way. It does feel like your worst fear of stage fright, where like you've forgotten your line and then you realize, oh no, somebody just told me to stand up here and start, and they didn't even give me lines. So that's how it felt. But again, it was in the most safe environment ever. Like there was 8 other people and they were all on the same page. They're all not super great comedians. And like, we're just vibing. We're just having a good time. So like, and all of them, I got off stage. She told me, you lived, it's fine. And then everybody was like, you did a great job. That was really good. They were being nice, and I'm aware enough to know that they were being nice. But like, if that's what do I have to be afraid of then at that point? If everybody's going to tell me I did a good job, I'm not going to die. So like, what is the fear? What am I in danger of? Genuinely nothing. It's just my own brain and my own like wiring that tells me it's dangerous. So yeah, it's I would definitely recommend anyone go. I don't want anyone I know to go to the same one as me, because that's going to terrify me. I do not want to perform in front of people I know, because there is also a level of like anonymity to it. That's like, I can make a fool of myself in front of people that don't know me.
Yeah.
And that matters not at all. Like I could not give a shit if Joe Blow from downtown sees me make a fool of myself. Like, right. I also saw him make a fool of himself, so we're even. But if I see, if you come and I make, like, I don't know, I just can already feel myself wanting to act differently if you're there. Yeah. So if you know me, don't go to the same session as me, but I also recommend you go. It's awesome. It's really fun. And you don't have to be funny. It's not a comedy thing. I really genuinely think it could be therapeutic, but for the most,
sounds like it.
Most of the scenes were played straight. I don't think anybody really was trying to do comedy.
Wow.
They were just playing a scene. So like wherever the scene went, if we're talking, one of them, I turned into a foster parent and they were a foster kid and I was a bad dad and I was like being mean to them, and it was kind of scary and heartbreaking, and then it ended. there was no laughter.
Because you have to keep that persona during the scene.
Yeah, I started and I was like, for some reason I was like, don't do that. Come with me. In a little bit angrier of a tone than I meant to. And then I was like, okay, this is me now. I'm a shitty guy.
You like 10 seconds later have this massive change of heart because you just can't handle
I don't want to do this anymore. Yeah. There was another scene where I was we were in like a warehouse with boxes, shipping boxes. And I was like moving boxes. And at some point she was like, hey, I got to go early today, like in the scene. And I was like, I'll only let you go early if you take my shift next week. And then I turn into asshole again. My whole thing at that point, like my character's goal was to get as much out of this lady as possible. And she was like, okay, well, can you help me move these boxes? And I was like, only if you take my next week's shift. And I kept saying that. And I was like, why am I doing this? I've turned myself into an asshole and now I'm stuck. But it was fun. I mean, it was improv. It was where I wanted to go with the scene and where the scene was taking me. And, I was maybe not as present as I could have been. I could have listened to her more and followed her lead a little more instead of taking the lead. But either way, like it did feel like that's where the scene was always meant to go. That's what's fun about improv is it only exists in that moment. It will never exist again because even
like a painting that people will look at later.
Exactly. That exact scene will never exist again. And maybe for good reason. Like, I think that's the fun of it is that.
Yeah, that feels super liberating.
Yeah. It's like, okay, cool. I fucked it up, but like, I will have a million more scenes that I could do something good at. And those will also come and go. And that's kind of, there's a fun to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was interesting. Improv itself is, I definitely, like, as a therapy, I think I really, especially if you suffer with anxiety and like performance anxiety or social anxiety, it just is such a liberating feeling of non-judgment that like you could be the dumbest asshole ever in the room and like, okay, cool. We're all kind of dumb assholes a little bit. Like, that's fine. It's cool. We're all on the same page. So yeah, I liked it. It was fun.
That's really cool. It's the thing I was thinking of when I was thinking about what is improv in regards to all the other creative outlets that I can think of, like music, painting, a podcast, or I don't know, like getting tattoos, like just whatever creative self-expression there are out there. And the thing that I feel like makes improv unique is the audience is there with you in that moment.
They're on your team.
They're there while you are creating the self-expression that you're doing. Whereas like when you're painting, you're alone doing your thing, or you're producing music, you're alone doing your thing. So the actual like creating part isn't nearly as stressful as with improv because the audience is there right
while
there.
You create.
Yeah, like this podcast, nobody else, the audience isn't here right now. We can go edit, do whatever we need to do to create this and make it as beautiful. When we are ready to show it to people, it will be shown.
We will show exactly what we want to show, not how it comes out in the moment.
Which makes improv all the more terrifying. Yeah. And I am all the more excited for you.
That's a cool way to look at it. I love that way. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So what's you say this podcast is something that you're working on. Do you have like some anxiety with that? Like what can you talk about and speak to some of that anxiety you feel about starting this podcast? Like what is the anxiety? Is it failure? Is it that it's going to suck? Is it that your friends are going to hear? Is it that you're going to say a cuss word and someone you didn't cuss in front of is going to like why is this such a different level of self-expression than why not painting? Why didn't you pick up painting?
Yeah. I think I just now know the answer to that question as you were asking it because I was just thinking about it more. And I think it's because podcasts specifically, I love consuming podcasts. So I feel like I have a really high standard for what I want it to be.
Okay.
Which makes it really hard. Whereas painting or creating music, I enjoy consuming those things, but not nearly as personally as podcasts. Because I have like 3 or 4 different podcasts that I cycle through. And they'll be like, one's like a comedy one, one's a sports one, one's a like current events one. So just all different facets of my life, I enjoy consuming podcasts. Because like one of my favorite activities is going on walks. And that's perfect for podcasts. So I think that's why this is so difficult for me. But also like really good for me. Because I know I want to do it. But it's really hard because I know what good podcasts are like. And listening to this and it not meeting some of those bars that I've kind of set is really hard. It's really hard because it's my own self that I'm trying to impress.
Yeah. And your standard is up against like great podcasts that are like professionally done. So now you're like, if you're your own, like if you're the critic of this podcast, just like you're the critic of those podcasts, it's like this just isn't going to be able to stack up to professional podcasts.
Right. Totally. So that's kind of my like approach to this, because it's just so much more personal, and no other creative outlets felt nearly as personal.
So what do you want out of this podcast? Like in the intro, we kind of talked about what the idea for it is, like connecting people, and it's really funny because this podcast is genuinely just conversations that we always have. Like you've already mentioned a few times, like, oh, you said this before, because we had an hour-long conversation before we started recording. Right. That's just this podcast. So like we've always done this where we'll get together and we'll talk about these stories of our lives. So like what about these stories? What about like the stories that bind us that is intriguing to you? Why this podcast? Why this theme for a podcast?
I think about it a lot in terms of like humanity as a whole. What makes us cool? What do I like about being involved as a species together with humanity? And it's all of those creative things. Those are what I consume and enjoy about the people around me. Our songs or movies, religion or politics, or just big ideas that people have. And those are the things that I enjoy talking about. And so just purely like for myself, I know that I enjoy things like this when we're sharing stories. Like we were just talking for an hour before this.
Yeah.
I enjoyed
that was an
conversation.
Enjoyable moment.
Yeah. And I want other people to experience that. And if nothing else, I will enjoy it.
Yeah. That's what I was, so yeah, I kind of jumped on late for this podcast to become a sort of co-host to it. And I'm excited because it's an excuse to talk to you. It's an excuse to do something that I already love doing for an extra hour a week or whatever, how long and how often we record the podcast. But it's just like, it does feel like it's something that we've always done. I think what I love so much about your, like the angle that you're doing is finding other people and like whether it's the politics or the religion or the whatever, and like bringing them in and being like, I see you and I love this one thing about you. It's like, let's talk about this one thing. Like today it's expression, because we both love talking about self-expression, but like, I love the idea that there is a thing that binds us to literally every single person in the entire world. I literally don't think there's one person on this globe that we couldn't find something, because we're humans, because we're the human race who have something that binds us. And to me, I think it's just, it's our stories. It's the stories that we tell and the people that we know, and those stories are that which bind us. So I just love that angle, and it makes me really excited, excited for just me and you to keep talking about the things that bind us, but also like find new people and talk about the things that bind us to everyone. I think there's much bigger implications of that far outstretch just our family and just our friends, but like everybody in the world. Yeah.
Right.
That'd be really interesting.
Totally. Totally. And when it comes to like this topic specifically and how I've interacted with people, if I've ever talked about expressing myself, whether through a podcast or whatever creative outlet, it's really fun to hear their response just in natural conversation. When I'm just being social, it's really cool to hear, whether or not it was difficult for them, if it's something that they were handed, like say, music runs in the family, and they don't actually have a personal connection to music, but it's something that runs in the family. Yeah,
this is about self-expression. But when you ask people about self-expression,
just like when I'm talking about this thing I've been doing as a podcast, it's hard, it's scary, it's been really good and healthy for me, but really hard. And then I kind of flip it back to them. It's just really interesting. Yeah. And that's what I want from this podcast. I want interesting conversations, and I love consuming people, and that's what I want this podcast to be. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a really cool way of looking at
it. Okay, so another question. Okay. This isn't in regards to what we were just talking about, but this is something I was talking about in specific to you in self-expression. So you know the Enneagram personality test, right? Okay. Are you very into it or not very into it?
I know what I am.
Okay.
I know what I am, and I know what my parents are. Just enough to get me mad at my parents, and that's it.
That's great. That's great. I love that for you.
What are you?
I'm a 9, and I relate pretty well to it.
Okay. I can see that.
I'm not like super into the Enneagram. I think it can be really healthy. I remember when I was talking about it to my therapist, because I was like, yeah, I'm kind of a type 9, and there's some things. And he started talking about the Enneagram in a way that I felt was really good. He was like, it can be really healthy for self-discovery. When it can be dangerous is when you start putting people in boxes.
Totally.
And assuming they are this number, and you put them in a box.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely not religious about it, but it's really helped me in my own self-discovery. So I'm a 9 who's a very just gets along with everyone, has bits and pieces of a lot of different types of personalities, is pretty malleable person, fits in a lot of different environments. He's like a peacemaker, wants everything to be kind of peaceful. So for you, my understanding of you and how I would describe you is a type 4. And that's someone who is very creative, loves expressing themselves when they can.
Yeah.
But it's just like when we're talking about self-expression specifically, I was like, that's a Jack thing. Like, I wonder how your experience has been with that, because, and especially when we're going back to childhood times of when did we learn creativity was scary or bad? When did we learn it was good? All of these things. I was thinking, like, was it natural for you to be creative? And it was so, because for me, in my environment, I don't feel like fostered my creativity, but I wasn't looking to express that to the degree that I think you probably were. So I was like, I wonder if you even felt more bogged down by the structure. So I was just curious what your experience with creativity has been like.
Yeah, that's a really good question. It makes me think about my relationship with expression from a different angle that I would really like to talk about, I think. I am an Enneagram 4. That is something that feels really true to me. I like to feel, there's someone I work with who's also an Enneagram 4, and she's very, her whole thing, like, growing up was, I just wanted to be different from everybody. I wanted everybody to think I was different. So, like, I would go last when we would go in a line of everybody naming their favorite color, because I had to name a color that no one else's favorite was. And I relate to that so hard. That's like, I want to have different tastes than everyone. I want to be different. I want to feel different. And that has always been true to me.
Yeah.
And I think
is that scary to admit, because it devalues the taste of that? Like in her example, her taste in color, she's waiting to hear other people's opinions. Is that scary for her to admit in a setting like that? Because she's like, she can't say, no, this is my favorite color.
Yeah. She would only admit that 15 years later and one-on-one with me. But we got, it wasn't an argument, but we were talking yesterday even just about like how similar she and I are. And she goes, which one of us do you think is the copy of the other? Like, who's more similar to the other? Like, are you more similar to me, or am I more similar to you?
Oh my God. Neither of you are going to say you are.
Because we both wanted to be the original. We both wanted to be the one, not the copy, the original. And it's just funny. Like, we were joking about it. And then her husband goes, that is the most Jack and you conversation to have in the world. Who is more original between these two crazy original people? So yes, that has been, I think my relationship to expression was I want to be different or better. I think what feels true to me right now as I'm saying this is the thing for me in high school was Christianity. Was like, I want to be the best Christian there is. Like, I want to show everybody that, like, I'm taking this even more seriously than you. We did a senior trip, and the whole thing with senior trip is you go, everybody gets all hopped up on emotions and of this like spirituality, that you come back, and for the next 3 weeks, everybody is reading their Bible like crazy, talking about God like crazy. Like, it's a high. You come back, and that's like everybody talks about it. It's
the camp high, baby.
Yeah, it's a camp high. You come back with the spiritual high, and I was like so desperate to not get the spiritual high because I knew everybody was going to. I even rolled my eyes because people would come back and they were like, "Oh, I'm like, this changed my life. It changed my life, and I'm gonna be a good Christian from now on." And I'm like, spiritual high, spiritual high couldn't be me.
I had this baby from day one.
I'm not spiritual high. I'm spiritual always. But like, I just remember it being so important to me. It's hard now because I even have a lot of shame for myself that I wish I wasn't that way. I think it's not a personality trait that I think is becoming of someone I would like to be, or even wish I was. But also, I was surviving. I was doing the best I could, and I think I thought that was a noble way to live at the time. Now I look back and I think there was a lot of messy pride and just like self-salvation stuff. Like I was trying to save myself from literal hell. So I think it's okay for me to have been that way. I think we were all a little silly in high school. So I don't take it all that seriously, but it was so important to me to express myself via God. I was like, I always talked about God. I always talked about the Bible, how amazing the Bible was. I remember like coming out of a Bible study, I was talking to my then girlfriend, who's my now wife somehow. We've been together for 11 years and we've changed so much together. But at that point, we were both very hard Christians, and we were very accountable to each other to maintain that quote unquote spiritual high forever.
Right.
Like that was our mission for each other, was to stay on that high. And we left a Bible study, and I remember pulling her aside, and I cried about how this was genuine. This is a genuine moment of sincerity and love for the Bible. I cried about how great the Bible was. I was like, this book is, there's a lot of like shame wrapped up in even my expression of this, but like, I'm not worthy is what I was saying to hold this Bible. Like there's so much great love and joy in this Bible that I am too bad of a person to have this. Which is kind of sad now when I look back. But I think even then I was expressing myself. I was expressing a deep sincerity and intimacy that I didn't feel like a lot of other people had. And I felt it. I felt that sincere and that intimate with the Bible and with the scripture and with Maddie.
Yeah.
But I think, so that was like my high school, like coming of age moments where the biggest thing I was expressing myself with was Christianity. I did like a little music, but not much. I played sports, but, and I had a lot of identity in sports. I had a lot of identity in sports.
Yeah.
But, I had a lot of even like that identity in sports I felt guilty of because I felt like my identity should be in Christ. So that,
baby.
What? Yeah. I mean, that's just how good of a Christian I was. But yeah, so earlier before that, I mean, I think that
I was going to say the big thing for you in high school from the outside looking in, I don't know if this was as big for you, but it was that when you chose to not play football in order to do a musical, which was unprecedented in our family. That's true.
I mean, yeah.
That, and you were on a stage, you were very, I don't know, bombastic and emotive during these musicals. And I was like envious of that you were like, you were untamed in your expression of the characters you played. And it was really cool to watch.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. I don't know. I think I've always been a little bit like, I don't know, the word that comes to mind is fruity, which I think I mean it in the way you think I'm meaning it, but also in just a way of like, I've just always kind of been a little colorful. That's a good word. Yeah. So yeah, I didn't really care for football. I was fine at it. I wasn't terrible at football. I didn't like it. I didn't like getting hit. So I was like, I like musicals. All my friends are into musicals. I like singing. I'm loud. I'm flamboyant. Like, this is fun. I like it. And so, yeah, I don't know.
So it felt a little more natural. It wasn't you like pushing yourself to do this thing. It was a little more, this is just an environment I will also do well at. It's a little more pushing yourself.
Yes. But I think I knew I would do well at it.
Okay.
I felt less judgment in that realm than I did in sports. Sports was a highly judgmental place for me to be. I hated doing poorly in sports because coach is yelling and my dad's watching.
Yeah.
I think there's also was a little bit of a fuck you to mom and dad, even like before I really knew it. that was like, I'm going to do my own thing. I think it was more the Enneagram 4 that was like, I'm going to do the thing that makes me happy, that I think I'm good at.
Yeah.
And also maybe that just makes me different. I just want to be different. Yeah. I don't want to be the Crewell that played sports all 4 years, because I'm different. Yeah. I'm built different. I do musicals. So yeah, I think there was a little bit of that. I think any type of expression I had, even when I was a kid, was probably out of a sort of sense of individualizing myself, which, when you consider that I have 11 brothers and sisters, does make a little bit more sense. Like, I wanted to be different enough to be seen.
Yeah.
And I kind of felt like, if I'm not different and if I'm the same as everyone else, nobody's going to see me and I'm going to get lost. And I still got lost, because there's nothing you can do when you have 11 brothers and sisters. Like, you just get lost. But I think I had kind of internalized that getting lost into, you're just not different. Like, you're not doing good enough. You're not showing yourself enough. You're not, whatever. But yeah, I think there definitely was. I've been expressing myself for a long time. Typically not often stretching myself to express, if that makes sense. Like, I would only usually have expressed myself in a way that was comfortable and felt like I would succeed.
Because some things that come to mind now for you that I look at as self-expression for you is, like, currently you have really long hair, which is really cool. Yeah. Looks great on you.
Thanks.
You have a big beard, which is unique to our family. Looks great. You got a tattoo that's visible on your arm. That's different than all of us.
That is, isn't it? Look at me.
Look at you.
I'm so much different than
everyone
everybody.
Sees you.
I'm so cool. Look at me.
So you have all these things that I think from the outside looking in, I'm like, yeah, that makes you totally unique. And you as an adult now doing these things, but maybe to what you're saying, that those were maybe a little more comfortable than something as massive as, like, improv.
Yeah, improv I'm bad at. Like, I'm if my long hair looked bad, I would cut it.
Gotcha.
Like, I'm not. There's part of me that's like expressing myself for the purpose of expression, and I think a bigger part of it is like expressing myself in a way that ultimately makes me look fine at the end of it.
Gotcha. Because with improv, when you express yourself, you kind of look like a fool.
I look silly. Yeah. I look dumb. For instance, here's a way I shaved my beard into a mustache for the month of November, and I looked silly. I looked really bad. And I was insecure about it for an entire month, and I grew back my beard as soon as possible. And, like, I think I had that anxiety of, like, okay, this is me expressing myself. And then people would be like, mustache is not it. Mustache has got to go. And I would be like, no, I'm keeping the mustache with every inch of my body. That's like, you've got to get rid of the fucking mustache, man. People don't like it.
Yeah.
But it's funny that you mentioned the hair, even, because it was like a year ago, probably now, where I really started growing out. And I remember a conversation I was having with Maddie about self-expression, where I was like, I think that's what this hair, like, it's a new version of me where I'm going to start expressing myself boldly and without an audience, or without the need for an audience. So that's what I'm trying to do more of now. Is not like the mustache was improv for me. It was like a step of, I think this is going to look bad, but I want to do it to show people. And I I don't think I failed, but it was too uncomfortable for me to keep it. And I never really meant to keep it, but, like, there are things that I will do now that are just for me. Like, I wrote a poem last week that is a wild poem. It's I've never written anything like it. I honestly can't stop thinking about it because I don't know what I was thinking when I wrote it. It just, like, came to me. And, like, that's just for me, and I'm really excited about it. But, like, I'm not as worried anymore about the audience's thought. And I think that all started with my album, which was just over a year ago. I released like 7 or 8 songs that I had written and recorded myself and produced, and they were all fine. But the idea was like, this is me putting my thoughts down and my emotions down and just being so fully and 100% embodied being Jack and releasing that and not trying not to care what people think. And I think I do. I think I did it. I don't think I care. If somebody listened to it and they told me they didn't like it, I think I would say, same. It's not that good. Because the point wasn't to be good. The point was to express myself. So I think that's what I'm trying to do more of, which is the improv is like kind of the next step of, like, I think it's, I say same. I think it's fine. I'm kind of happy with it. It's happy great. With my music.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to release a set of improv just yet because that would be really, really uncomfortable because of how bad I would be at it. So like there is like tiers of like, you know, I have to be this good to release it, but I want to get to a point where I am able to be a little bit less good than that and still release it and still show people that.
Yeah.
Even though it's a little less refined, it's a little less funny, it's a little less great, but like it's still me. It's still fully holistically embodied me. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm trying to be now, as a little more unrefined version of Jack. That's like truer to me, true to the core of who I am, and still expressing myself. So it's the long hair. I've spent a lot of time updating my closet and like dressing.
I remember talking to you about this. You were talking about you wanted to just like dress more. I don't know, like you want to, more colorfully. I don't know, just like you want to.
Stylized. And I it's been fun. It's been great because it's also like I want to tap into what Jack wants, not what I think other people want for me.
Which, like, when I think about our story, being in a big family, we lived on hand-me-downs. Yeah. So we never had the opportunity to express ourselves through clothes. It was always just about being efficient with your clothes.
Totally. It's all about efficiency.
Buy at a bargain. Like, if it fits, wear it. If it's clean, wear it. Like, that's the minimum that it requires for expressing yourself. Yeah. Okay, so for the last little bit, I think we've done really well laying out all the things that are really hard about expressing yourself when it comes to creativity.
Yeah, it kind of sounds miserable.
And all the just ways that we're pushing ourselves, things that we've grown up where we learn different things. I think we've really, that's what I really enjoy. And I don't think this is the format of the podcast that I'm like, I want it to always be like this. But if we were going to just lay out some things we've learned or tidbits of this has been pretty cool. Not that we're, scientists or know what we're doing, but just we're people who have had experiences that have maybe helped us. What are just some things that we've learned as a result of expressing ourselves that we would like to share?
Yeah. Can I hear your answer first?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'll dive in first. Okay. So my example of this would just be socially. I think I've grown a ton through this very specific self-expression in a safe environment, judgment-free environment, pushing myself to be creative and not worrying so much about what the audience is thinking. I have learned in social situations that it's okay to make jokes that don't land. It's okay to tell a story that wasn't that interesting. It's okay to express yourself for the sake of expressing yourself, because you are now more engaged in your environment and you are an active participant in your environment. You're not just watching. So that's something that I've really learned and been dabbling in a little more. I'm going to tell this story. Yeah. This was interesting. Lately for me, it's been, I got a second cat about a week ago. When people start talking to me at work, I'm like, I got a second cat. I'm a cat guy. I'm going to talk about cats for a couple minutes.
Yeah. I'm going to show you myself right now. Right. Independent of how you think about it.
Right. Yeah. And it's kind of fun because I enjoy conversations a little more because I'm an active participant. I'm not just trying to find the best way to consume the person next to me and ask them the questions that I think are interesting. I'm just an active participant in my environment, way more now, and thoughtful about how I'm actively participating. So it's something that I've been dabbling in as a result, and it's been really good.
Great. I think that's amazing. That I feel like I've noticed that from you. Just I think it's just the activeness. I've just noticed much more presence, and not that you've ever really not been present, but like having a present conversation with you is just the most delightful thing. Like it's so great. And it does feel like you're, I don't know, intentional maybe doesn't even feel like a strong enough word, but it feels like you're being much more intentional in conversations that makes me, number one, feel heard, but also makes me feel like you want to talk about yourself. Like you are also interested in yourself. And like that makes me, it's like, oh wow, if he's worth listening. Like he's got something to say, and he knows he's got something to say. So I'm going to sit here and listen because I want to hear what this guy has to say.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've really, really enjoyed conversations with you.
Which it's interesting hearing you say that, because this feels like the second step, like creative self-expression and feeling comfortable. Because the first step was self-confidence. And that building that up through almost 2 years of therapy now, like being able to tell those stories and be comfortable with myself, and building my own self-confidence. Like that was the first step, was self-confidence. And now the second step is how I show that to the world or express myself through that.
So I wonder, because I hear you keep saying like a safe place, like, it is safe between you and me for you to open up with yourself and with your friends. Have you thought, or do you think that there is a third level where it's like, okay, now what if it's an unsafe place? Like I can think of a very unsafe place for me to express myself and be open about who I am in front of my mom. That's the unsafe place I'm hinting at. And like, I'm wondering,
we made it 52 minutes without talking about mom. That might be unprecedented and might not ever happen again. So,
but I guess I'm wondering, like, does your your working on your self-expression, does it stretch all the way to an unsafe environment?
And still
can you express yourself this way? If the audience says, I reject this, I don't like this, you are not worthy, are you still able to say, fuck you, I am, and I want to talk about myself, and I am a cat guy?
Yeah. Damn, that is so hard, because I really haven't thought about that. I think I've been so adamant about making sure the environment is safe because I know I can't handle an unsafe environment.
Yeah. Which in reality, most environments are safe for conversations like that. I think we've been raised in a wholly unsafe environment for anything. So now it's like reteaching ourselves to think, okay, all of these situations are actually safe. It was an anomaly that every situation was unsafe growing up, but that was an outlier. Right now, every situation basically is a safe environment. So I think it is good to retrain your brain that all of these situations are safe. But unsafe environments do exist, and those are still good environments for you to continue expressing yourself.
For sure. Because the first step was making sure I was happy with myself, and that was hard enough. So I hadn't even thought of the idea that there would be negative feedback, because I was just so for sure that I wouldn't let there be an opportunity for that. Yeah. Because I alone was giving myself so much negative feedback. So that felt like the final boss of the self-creative expression. It was me getting over the me hurdle. But what's on the other side, I haven't really considered.
Someone else who doesn't like you?
I think the thing I would say that I would hope is that I love myself so much that it doesn't matter. Yeah. Which is ultimately, the goal. That's the goal. But I'm not there. But that's the goal, I guess. That's a really good question. I don't even know. I think that pushed me really hard, and I would love to see the me on the other side of that.
Yeah, same. Crazy. That's a good way of saying that. By the way, I'm in the same spot. I talk about this a lot with my therapist. Is like, okay, I have these tools. I know now the people in my life who are safe to share myself with, and I'm getting better at sharing myself and treating them as a safe place. And then I'll be like feeling so good about myself, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to say this to the people that make my life unsafe. I'm going to do all this. And then my therapist will be like, really? Why? Like, that's going to be really hard for you to do. Yeah. And I'm like, no, it won't be. And then we'll kind of do some dialoguing where she'll, call and response, and she'll play the unsafe character. And it's like, oh, I want to kill myself. So I also need to work on that self-love where it's like through it all, through myself, through a safe audience and even through an unsafe audience, I am still so sure that I am worth sharing that nobody can stop me from sharing myself. I'm also not there yet. That's it's terrifying for me to think about.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's also where I would say I am. What was your the good things? The good things
yeah,
about
just some
expression.
tidbits for our audience. Our audience is on the edge of their seat, wondering what our two giant brains have to offer them.
I'll make you wait as long as I can. I think I enjoy. I don't know. It's the Enneagram 4 thing sticks out to me as the like real truth is. I like being seen. I like people seeing me. I like writing a song about my relationship now to quote unquote God and to the great that exists somewhere, that I believe exists somewhere that isn't necessarily the Christian God. I love that I could write a song about that and I could release it. And now people know. Now people know when they think, is Jack a Christian? Just listen to this song and you'll know. Mm-hmm. You'll know the exact type of spirituality that I hold. I think that's special. I like being seen like that. I like for people to know me. I think also that unsafe thing really helps, like the rewiring in my brain, what isn't an unsafe place, and that most places in my life are safe to be myself. And the only part of me that thinks it's unsafe exists in my head. And I can typically rest assured that I'm not in any danger expressing myself. So I would say that is another great thing that that has come from this, is like breathing through the moment and saying, you are okay to do this, to be yourself, to wear that shirt, to have long hair, to have a mustache. Like, you are safe to do that here. You're not in danger. And it's that has made a profound effect on my relationship, specifically with my wife. It's profound, the difference, that the conversations that we're able to have now, where I can say something scary that I know she's not going to like I can disagree with my wife now. We spent 8 years of our relationship not disagreeing because I was so terrified that if we disagreed, I was unsafe. And I didn't want to do that. So I just agreed. And it was easier for me to shove myself way down and say, you know what? I agree. And now I'm able to show up in moments where she'll say, I didn't like the way you did that. And I'll say, I actually think I did fine. I like and I'm proud of the way I did that. And we're allowed to disagree and you're allowed to be mad at me for that. But like, I'm not going to shove myself down in order to appease you. Like, I'll exist in this conflict for a moment, knowing that it's a safe conflict. It's a safe environment.
Yeah.
It's like, it's made a super profound effect on me. And it's all about self-expression, I think. It all comes from that same zone of, I am showing up as myself, independent of what you say.
Yeah.
With the caveat of knowing most environments are safe for that.
Right.
But yeah, I think that is the biggest takeaway, is rewiring my brain to trust that people are generally going to receive me well.
That you don't have to completely feel that like evolutionary reaction of anxiety that's like, I'm going to die, retooling your brain to like, I'm not going to die. I'm not going to die. I'm going to make it through this. I'm going to sit here in silence on stage in front of these 8 improv actors, and I'm going to get through it. And she's going to say, you didn't die. You made it through. And every single time, I will not die. And that's really nice to know. And it sounds crazy. It's something I didn't know for a really long time, whether or not I was going to die. Like, it felt, my body acted as if I would die. And now, there's a lot of freedom in knowing, like, my body, like, I can calm my body down and convince him, you're not going to die. Yeah. So that's really cool. I feel like we left people with a little bit to think about. Yeah. Some things to I chew hope on. So. Some things to chew on. I really loved what we talked about. And I hope at the end of all of these podcasts that it kind of gets people thinking about. Yeah. Because I, not only as a like selfish, like what I can offer people, I got a lot out of this too. Yeah. So Same. Yeah. Great. Okay. Well, thank you guys for listening. If you made it this long, we actually just hit the hour mark, depending on how much we edit out of this. So if we're at 52 minutes, just know we went on an 8-minute long tangent that sucked ass. And that will be in our Patreon, which is a paywall. All of the shitty ones go into the
Going to the Patreon.
Yes.
Because that's a safe environment for us to suck ass.
Where you can financially consume it.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for listening. Thank you, Jack, for sharing your thoughts.
Yeah. If you want to be on this, let us know, and let us know what some things that you love talking about. You know, a lot of the idea of this podcast is meeting people where they're at and with something that they want to talk about. So if you have something interesting that you'd love to talk with us about, hit us up. We'd love to have you on.
For sure. We're a judgment-free zone. So
absolutely.
Great. Thank you guys for listening, and hope you can tune in next time.
All right. See you later.
Bye.